Kate Mulefalcher, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. I'm going to do a little disappearance mystery here. This is a story that has kind of haunted me for a long time, and it sounds like a lot of mysteries haunt me. I really appreciate a problem to be solved, and for the families, this is not entertainment. This is not just a problem to be solved. This is something devastating that never ends. They never have peace about it. But it's undeniable, the draw of trying to figure out an unsolved mystery. This is the disappearance of Jodi HUISENTRUIT, and I'm sure I mispronounced that. A Scandinavian last name, I believe. She was born January 5th, 1968 in Long Prairie, Minnesota. Her parents were Maurice and Imogene. She excelled at golf in high school. I went to a really small school, and the idea that there would be a golf team, just kind of amusing to me. She went to St. Cloud University and studied mass communication and speech communication and got her bachelor's degree in 1990. Her first job was with Northwest Airlines. I don't know what specifically she did, but undoubtedly she dealt with the public because she really had charm and charisma. She was good with people. I'm sure that's what she must have done. She eventually went on to work for a CBS affiliate in Cedar Rapids, and she was the bureau chief there. Then she moved on to Minnesota for ABC in a town called Alexandria. Finally, she ended up in Iowa as a CBS anchor for a morning show in the affiliate for CBS in Mason City, which always makes me think of the Music Man. The day before she disappeared, she was in a golf tournament. It was some sort, if I remember correctly, it was some sort of charitable thing that she was involved in. And then she went to the house of John Vancic, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. This was a somewhat older man who apparently was drawn to her, we'll put it that way. She went to the house to see a video he had made of a birthday party that he had thrown her earlier in the month. So you get the impression that there's this attraction of some sort. I'm not clear if they were ever dating, or I don't know. I should say right off the top that this is unsolved. This is one of those stories that is frequently covered in podcasts and mystery shows, and there are a lot of theories. I'm just giving you the bare bones details. I don't really know a ton about it. I did listen to a really, really good podcast called, I think it's called Find Jodi. I would really strongly recommend it. It's very good. At 4 o'clock in the morning of Tuesday, June 27th, 1995, her boss, her producer at work, Amy Kuris, noticed that Jodi hadn't come into work yet. I think she was supposed to be there at 3. So she called Jodi at her apartment. Now, Jodi had a bit of a reputation for sleeping in, sleeping past her alarm, being a little late. She was very dedicated to her job. She was very good at what she did. It's just, you know, hard to get up and be at work at 3 o'clock in the morning. So she answered the phone and told her friend that she had overslept, but she was already up and was rushing around getting ready and would be there very soon. She lived close. At 6 o'clock, she called again because Jodi hadn't shown up and there was no answer. So Kuris, her friend, her producer, filled in for Jodi that day, and the show was called the Daybreak Morning Show. At 7 o'clock, nothing from Jodi. They called the Mason City Police. The police went to her apartment, and in the parking lot, they found her red Miata. I think she was leasing it or planning to buy it. And There was evidence of a struggle around the car. They found a bent car key, her red high heels, and I believe some hair things strewn about the parking lot. There was an unidentified palm print on the car. I imagine there are all sorts of unidentified finger and palm prints on everybody's car, so I don't know if that would have even been much help. But at least 3 of her neighbors, whose windows looked down on the parking lot, heard somebody scream about the time that she told her friend she was going out to the car. And a nearby neighbor at the time looked out and saw a white Econoline van idling in the lot. So this happened, was it June? Let me make sure I get the date right. June 27th. I knew it was kind of close to 4th of July. So in September of 95, her family hired a private detective, McCarthy and Associates from Minneapolis. McCarthy and Associates sort of subcontracted with a guy called Doug Jossa from Omaha. They worked together, and they were actually together on a number of shows, nationwide shows like America's Most Wanted, Unsolved Mysteries. They went with her family in November of that year to Los Angeles to consult 3 very famous psychics whose names I don't know. These women eventually became part of a TV show called Psychic Detectives. They were unable to get any leads or a suspect. In May of 1996, so the following late spring, and I'm assuming we're talking weather and snow is why the delay, over 100 volunteers searched the area of the county around her place and her work. And they planted flags wherever they thought there was something that the police should take a look at. Police did more than 1,000 interviews. I'm sure that must include private detectives. More than 1,000 interviews. Jodi was declared legally dead. Excuse me, May of 2001. In 2003, a Minnesota television journalist started the FindJodi.com website to keep the case alive as a place to take tips that people might have. And her case was often linked with other cases. If there was a new missing person, they'd talk about the Jodi case. When remains were found that were identified, they'd talk about the Jodi case. In 2005, on the 10th anniversary, it was reviewed. And TV crime shows once again took an interest, and it's been 10 years at the time. 2020 did a show on it. In June of 2008, this is very interesting, odd. Who knows what this means? Excuse me. Copies of 84 pages of her diary were mailed to the Mason City Globe Gazette, the newspaper, in a big envelope, and they were marked with a June postmark from Waterloo, Iowa. No return address. Law enforcement already had her journal. So why was somebody mailing that to a newspaper? They'd had, the law enforcement had had her journal from the very beginning. In several days, the police found out that the sender was the wife of the Mason City's former police chief. They didn't figure out a motive according to what I read. I would love to know what that was all about. In May of 2015, all of the members of the Iowa House of Representatives signed on to a letter to make June 27th Jodi HUISENTRUIT Day in honor of all unfound victims. This letter was declined. It didn't say by whom. I wrote in the margin here, seriously? Why would anybody not go along with that? It seems like keeping a crime in the forefront of the public attention would help. Does somebody perhaps not want it to be in the forefront of public attention? December 2016, retiring state representative John Quaker wrote to the Northwest Iowa Review, and he suggested there was a cover-up by the Mason City officers. So the plot thickens. March of 2017, there was a search warrant to go through the car and the GPS of John Van Sice or Van Sice. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Never heard more about it, and he died in 2024. He just died. In 2019, so between the time of the search warrant and before he died, a new private investigator, Steve Ridge, began looking into the case. I don't know why, but we're going to find out because I think he's going to come and talk with us. I've been in touch with him. He's tentatively agreed. We haven't set a date yet. Fingers crossed. Since 2020, Mason City law enforcement and the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation have been actively investigating this. The podcast Find Jodi was launched, and I really strongly recommend it. And, you know, podcasts like that are free. In 2022, ABC's 2020 did another update. This will be the third time that the story had been covered on 2020, called Gone at Dawn. In 2003, Steve Ridge, the private investigator, offered $25,000 for information. Then he raised it to $50,000. Well, we're going to have to find out where that was coming from. And it does not require the arrest or conviction of anybody, simply the recovery of her remains. In October of 2024, so fairly recently, the Mason City Police searched a rural site in Winstead, Minnesota, where an apartment construction was going on, because they got an anonymous tip. Ridge did report in his report on the case that Jodi had a new boyfriend when she disappeared. They had been going together for about 10 days. So this begs the question, did somebody get jealous? Was this new boyfriend a problem? Was an old boyfriend a problem? There were reports that some man was heard going back and forth from her apartment on the night before she disappeared. We'll have to ask about that. I don't know. A lot of unanswered questions. Join me on Substack because I did do cards on this. I shouldn't say that, should I? I hope there's sound. I'm having some sort of weird situation here with the sound, so we'll see what happens. In the meantime, stay tuned because I think Mr. Ridge might be coming to speak. And this remains terrible mystery and really torture, purgatory for her family because there's no peace. There's no resolution. To not know is a special kind of hell. So may Jodi rest in peace and Slongafoil.